Hello there, thrill seekers. And today's Monday Moldy Oldie comes from September 11th, 2009 in Durham, England at, I think it's Durham University that I spoke at back then. And I am answering the question, what has Zazen done for you? I have been talking a little bit about on this channel about the fact that I don't like to sort of advertise Zazen. I don't like to come out here and say the benefits of Zazen are blah blah blah. Like I showed that thing that David Lynch had put up about the benefits of transcendental meditation, and it gives you more power and more energy and does this and that and makes you happier and more creative and blah blah blah. This is kind of a standard thing that a lot of people do for meditation practices these days, and in the Zen tradition we just don't do that. There are a few people who do that, and I think they're probably misunderstanding the tradition. But generally speaking, we don't talk about the benefits of it. But here is a video in which one of the students at this university asks me directly, well, what has Zazen done for you? What benefit has Zazen had for you? And I answered him, and this is the answer that you'll hear. It's kind of the same answer I would give now. I think it's. I mentioned in the video that I had just stopped working for Tsuburaya Productions a few months before this. So this is in September, and I stopped working with Tsuburaya Productions officially in January of 2009. So in this video, that's still kind of a fresh experience, and I'm talking about how Zazen impacted my work experience for working for a normal company with normal job and normal coworkers and all the hassles that one gets when doing that sort of thing. And so that's what I chose to address at the time, and I think it might be relevant to some folks watching this video channel. So here you go. Remember that if you want to donate to me, there will be information at the end of the video about how to go to hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate, and make a donation, and that's my main way of making a living, so I really appreciate those donations. But as always, this is offered for free, so you don't got to donate if you don't want to donate. Anyway, let's take a look at me on September 11th, 2009 in Durham, England, talking about what Zazen has done for me.
You said earlier that you were interested in Eastern philosophy,
Yeah.
and you decided to embrace the Zen Buddhism. That's what came along. But you're not really interested in like enlightenment and nirvana and stuff. So what is it that you've kind of taken from it? What have you learned from Zen Buddhism that's kind of helped you and improved you as a person?
I don't know.
Right.
But
Fair enough.
I know. I'm going to try to answer that question, though, because I think it's a good and reasonable question. But I remember talking to this friend of mine who's also a Zen monk. He's at the San Francisco Zen Center, and he said the more he practices this stuff, the harder it becomes to answer that question of what he's gotten out of it. Because it's hard, you can't really compare what I would have been to what I am now. But I can say that I don't think I would be alive today without this practice. Because I was a very depressed person with constant thoughts of suicide that have pretty much disappeared at this point. Occasionally it floats. Occasionally a thought. What's weird about this is it doesn't get rid of. The practice doesn't make you change your personality. It's all still there. But nowadays, if that kind of thought pops into my mind, I just go, oh, that one again. It just passes. And I don't actually give it much more thought. So I had that. And also, as you deepen the practice, I don't like to talk about enlightenment or mystical experience or anything like that. But certain things become clear about what life is. And the problem with the things that become clear is that it becomes also nearly impossible to convey what that is. Which sounds like a total cop-out, or an excuse not to say, but it's actually true. And I've actually tried to explain a little bit of that in writing. You kind of get the feeling that your maybe not your personal, but that at least my personal view of what I was and what the universe I was inhabiting was completely wrong. Completely wrong. And that it was absolutely different from that. And that all this stuff that these Buddhist guys had been saying for years, which I thought was metaphorical, was actually true. For example, I mentioned that form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. There's several ways of looking at it, but one way of looking at it is matter, which is solid matter and desks and people and whatever, overhead lamps and erasers and all this other stuff, is the same thing as the immaterial side of the universe, which is that experiential stuff, thought. And not really thought, it kind of goes beyond thought. Thought is another thing. Thought is just sort of a bunch of noise that lives on top of the experiential side of the universe. So you're kind of aware that you have these two sides. I think most of us are, that we have a body and that we have this sort of experiential world, which seems to be somehow connected with the body and is beyond. And these Buddhist guys are saying form is emptiness, emptiness is form. They're saying these are exactly the same thing, that there isn't a disconnect. And going deeper and deeper into that practice, I found that to be true. There's a few other things. For example, when you are sitting Zazen, especially if you're sitting for a very, very long time as you are in a retreat or something, you are constantly faced with yourself. So you're trying to sit still and trying to do this practice, and people who come and see you will and look at you from the outside might think that you're having wonderful mystical experiences, or that you're just sitting there being an idiot, looking at a wall. But what is actually going on for most people, a lot of the times, is the very opposite of calm and wonderfulness. It is this sort of, just trying to hold it together without running out of the room screaming, as has often been the case with me. That's not always. But once you've gone through that and face down all this stuff that you, in your own mind, can bring up, it's very difficult for anybody else to really bother you anymore. I mean, they can. And people who are very skillful at bothering people are still able to bother me sometimes. But there's nothing anybody else can come at you with that's any worse than what you can come at yourself. And I found that to be incredibly useful. When I'm having trouble, I just stopped working my regular job less than a year ago in January. So up until then, I had a boss and all this other stuff you have to deal with when you have a job. But I found that there was nothing in the workplace that was any worse than what I faced at retreats, which was amazing. I was just like, I'm suddenly not. It's not like you're just going around, I am not bothered by it anymore. But still, there's a certain sense of like, okay, say what you want. It doesn't. I've heard it. I've heard it from myself. So that's.